This is the Bassforecast bait breakdown for the deep diving crankbait. In this short video, we're going to cover these 5 topics: key features, top tips, matching forage, rod, reel, and line, and hook set. Let's start with the key features. This is the deep diving crankbait, and these are its components. This lure is built upon a large, hollow plastic body, usually in a long teardrop shape. It has a very long bill on the front, which allows it to dive to deep depths. 2 very large treble hooks are attached to the back and underneath. And as far as the sound it makes, they can be totally silent or very loud. The deep diving crankbait, just like every other crankbait, fits into the reaction baits category because as you retrieve it, it creates a reaction from the fish and gets them to strike. The retrieval with a deep diving crankbait is really simple. It all starts with a long cast. And the reason why a long cast is so important, I'm talking like a 50-yard cast, is because you want your deep diving crankbait to be in the strike zone as long as possible. It takes probably a quarter to a third of the retrieve to get that bait to dive all the way down to its maximum diving depth. And so a short cast is basically making your crankbait go down and then immediately back up. It doesn't go down, hit the strike zone, and then come back up to you. So a long cast is crucial. And if during my retrieve I feel my crankbait hit or bump a stump, a rock, or just the bottom, I will give it a pause and then begin my retrieve again, and that can trigger strikes from the biggest bass down there. Now, where should you throw the deep diving crankbait? What location is best? Well, first off, I would recommend starting with the Bassforecast recommended location because it's telling you to fish there for a reason. And on that location, on your body of water, find the hardest bottom you can. The rock, the gravel, the sand, the clay, whatever hard bottom you have, not mud, not grass, not vegetation, not sticks. You want to find the cleanest bottom possible because this is not a weedless lure. It has 2 big old treble hooks. So for the sake of not losing your lures, keep it in open water or on hard, clean bottom without many snags. The deep diving crankbait is also primarily a watercraft only lure. If you are a bank fisherman, I would not recommend throwing a deep diving crankbait because the majority of your retrieve, the bait's just going to be digging the bottom on the way back up to the bank. So if you are in a kayak, a john boat, or a bass boat like I am today, the deep diving crankbait can be a fantastic choice. Now, how deep should you be throwing your deep diving crankbait? Well, the good thing for you is that you don't really have a choice. The deep diving crankbait dives to a predetermined depth because of the angle and length of the bill. This crankbait right here dives to about 14 to 16 feet of water, and so I can fish it in 12 feet of water if I really want the crankbait to hit the bottom super hard, or I can fish it in the depth it was designed for, where it barely hits the bottom on 10-pound line. And of course, I can throw it in total open water 100 feet if I wanted to, but most of the time, I try to keep my crankbait within 5 foot of the bottom. And the best conditions to throw a deep diving crankbait in are going to be windy days. I don't care if it's sunny or if it's cloudy, if it's warm or cold, summer or winter, a deep diving crankbait can work, but the wind definitely helps you. Now, I've caught big fish before on pretty calm days, but it required my retrieve to be slower. So make sure you're understanding what the Bassforecast rating for today means. That way you can have the right retrieve speed for your deep diving crankbait. Now, when it comes to matching forage, the deep diving crankbait does a fantastic job of that. But one thing I'm sure you've noticed, or if you have one in your tackle box, is that this lure is pretty stinking big. So it doesn't do a good job of imitating the smaller bait fish, the threadfin shad, the minnows, the small perch, the gobies. What it does imitate though very well is the larger bait fish like the gizzard shad. And so if this lure only imitates large bait fish, that's the only kind of colors you really have to get. But just like with every other crankbait, if you're fishing dirty water or pressured fisheries and you want your lure to stand out, throw a more chartreusey color. Now for the rod, reel, and line. The deep diving crankbait, because it is a large lure, requires a bigger, more beefier setup to have success. Am I saying you can't throw a deep diving crankbait on an average bait casting rod? No, you probably can. But in order to get the longest cast and the best hook set into those fish on long casts, you need a long rod. At least 7 foot, I go at least 7'6" in length. Medium or medium heavy on your bait casting rod and moderate action. Just like a small crankbait, the shallow diving or medium diving, you need some kind of more forgiving rod because once the fish bites it on a fast retrieve, sometimes a heavier rod, a medium heavy, a heavy power is a little bit too much for those fish and can pull the hooks out of their mouth. You want that rod to have some give to it, which is also going to help during the fight so they can't throw this big lure out of their mouths. And the last thing we have to discuss is the hook set. Now, if done right, you don't need any hook set at all, just a simple lean into that fish. Because a deep diving crankbait is so heavy, the treble hooks hooks are so big and you're using a more beefy style of gear, there's no need for any kind of strong, aggressive, big hook set. Just a simple lean into those fish and then continuing to reel to keep the pressure on. And by doing that, you're gonna give yourself a great chance of catching big bass on the deep crankbait. We hope this video gives you more confidence in using a deep diving crankbait so you can adapt to the conditions and catch more bass. And I'll see you out on the water.